How do we divide sounds? There are two big groups.
Consonants and vowels.
Okay, so we divide sounds into consonants and vowels. I'll share the presentation now, but we'll, okay. Okay, so yeah, we have consonants. This is a little like trying to, and we have vowels. Okay. Okay, consonants and vowels. Now, if a child asks you, can you please explain me what's the difference between consonants and vowels? In very, very simple language, not using scientific terms, not using scientific definitions, just in your own words, how do you see the difference between consonants and vowels?
Maybe. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Well, maybe we pronounce vowels with open mouth, let's say it like that, and consonants, we create an obstacle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so as a result of the fact that we produce vowels with open mouth, like I or whatever, we say that the air goes freely through the mouth. So basically, as you said, Mara, right? So with consonants, we have some kind of obstacle or cats. So you have some kind of obstruction, I will put, or obstacle to the air stream. And in the case of vowels, you said the mouth is open, so we have rather free flow of air. So this would be the articulatory difference. Now, when I tell you to pronounce the sound w as in willing or will, but you can try. Will you say that you have obstruction to the air stream or rather free flow air? It's actually somewhere in between, but is it closer to consonants or vowels? So when you say w as in will, you can try to lengthen the sound and say w. So
I'd say it's closer to vowels, probably.
It's closer to vowels. It's very similar to vowels, and w has quite a lot of vocalic nature. But we still say, okay, there is more or less, well, there is relatively free flow of air, but still we say what is a consonant? It's not a vowel. So my question is why? So in other words, we need to fulfill what I wrote or what you told me is not enough for this division. There is something else very important that we need to add. A very important difference between consonants and vowels. Think in terms of syllables. So if I say,
maybe we can produce vowels continuously, how to say, like we can sing them.
Well, some consonants can also be produced continuously, like sh, sh, the so-called fricatives, šuškavi glase. Okay, we'll talk about this sound later, but just to give you the example.
Maybe vowels can carry a syllable, but consonants can.
Okay. So in this word here, this is a symbol for short I in English, by the way. We will talk about vowels next time. So how many syllables do you have in the word willing?
2.
2. And how many vowels do you have in the word willing?
Also 2.
Also 2. We have one and then the other short I sound. So 2 vowels, 2 syllables. So if we say that, if we said that w is a vowel, then we would have 3 syllables, right? But we don't. We have only 2. So what is then the difference? What is the relation between syllable, the term of syllable, and vowels and consonants? What is the difference?
Vowels can stand freely without consonants, but consonants are pronounced differently when they are followed with certain vowels. They can sound sometimes like vowels because of the shape of the mouth.
Okay, but what about carrying the syllable? What carries the syllable?
Vowels.
Vowels. So vowels basically have the central role in the syllable. Okay, central role in the syllable. They carry the syllable. There are some consonants, by the way, which can do that, but a very small number of them. Consonants usually have a marginal, role in a syllable. Some of them can carry a syllable, like when you say beaten and not carry, but most often they don't. They have vokali su ti koji nose slog. Konsonanti uglavnom imaju potpuno marginalnu ulogu u slogu. And that would be a second important difference. Is this okay?
Yes.
Jasno? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when we classify the consonants, would it be okay to say, well, somebody asks me, for example, what are the consonants of English? And I say, well, the consonants of English are, ch, p, g, n, h, j, j, r, l, n, g, and so on. Or I rather need some classification, some system in it.
We have like division in like articulation in manner and articulation in I forgot in manner and place.
Let's say that manner is more important. It has to do with how the obstacle is made. Sometimes it's a complete obstacle, so you have a contact between the articulatory organs. Sometimes it's partial, so the organs just come close to each other. I'll show you later on. But there's no true contact between them, and that's the manner of articulation. They say 10 minutes left. They will interrupt us, but I will send you the invitation, as I said, if they do it, and you just join in immediately. Okay, so according to the manner of articulation, what would be the first group of consonants? Sometimes they are called true consonants. They are characterized by some sort of explosion.
Plosives.
Plosives. Okay. So can you tell me? I'll have to upgrade anyway. Okay. Let's see. Oh. Okay. So if I tell you that P and B are plosives, for example, can you tell me what happens in the articulation?
Well, airflow is completely stopped for a moment. Then when it's released, it creates a sound like an explosion.
So basically, okay. Okay, so basically when you produce a plosive like P or T and so on, there is a contact between the vocal organs. There is a touch. Sometimes it's between lips, but sometimes it's between the tip of the tongue and, for example, alveolar ridge. Have you heard of alveolar ridge? It's true is alveolar graben.
Yeah, just the place right behind front teeth.
That's right. It's behind the upper teeth. So like T in English is alveolar sound. So what happens is there is a contact, right? But okay, I can put it like this. This is upper jaw and this is tongue. There is a contact. The air is compressed behind this obstacle. But this obstacle is removed quite abruptly, quite right like this. And this creates some kind of explosion. And this is why they are called plosives after all, because they have this abrupt removal of the obstacle and this creates explosion. Now, if I, yeah, I can do this. So if I start from lips, what are, and then I go backwards, so like this. What are the plosives in English? So when the obstacle is created here.
B, P.
Let's go backwards. Anything behind? To do. Okay, so the tip of the tongue and alveolar ridge. And there is one more pair.
G, K.
That's right. The back part of the tongue and soft palate. Have you heard of soft palate, Willem?
Yes.
It's quite back in front of you, basically. Okay. Now, and of course, all of them can be voiced or voiceless. What is voicing related to?
Vocal cords.
So if the vocal cords are vibrating, we have voice sounds. If they're not vibrating, we have voiceless sounds. Okay. I'm not going to, these are some examples. I will not, so, okay, let's focus on this first. Okay, so we have pub, the obstacle is complete, made at lips. We have tud, the obstacle is again complete, made between the tip of the tongue and alveolar ridge. And we have kg, the obstacle is again complete, and it's made between back part of the tongue and the velar soft palate. Now, why I put p before b, t before d, In other words, if you take a look at these sounds, p and then t and then k. So what is the significant difference between p to k on one hand and b to g on the other?
The first one in the pair is voiceless.
And the second one is voiced, right? Okay. So p, t, and k are voiceless. The vocal folds are not vibrating. Now, there is something typical of English p, t, and k in comparison to, for example, Serbian or Hungarian p, t, and k. If you say, okay, I mentioned at the beginning the word pik kao znak u kartama u srpskom. And in English you have the verb, pick. So p, p. Now I'm exaggerating a little bit because I want you to hear the difference. And you have a link here, by the way. I will send you the whole presentation to you so that you can see, you can watch and see it. So what was the difference also between t in Serbian and t, talk in English, k and k?
I think in a word pick, it's pronounced with aspiration, like, and in the second one, in the Serbian, like pick, it's not.
Exactly. So, and what is aspiration? How would you define aspiration? So we have a complete contact, complete closure of obstacle, contact. The air is compressed, then we have explosion, and then something happens after explosion in English.
Like we get a little breath out of us.
Exactly. So aspiration is basically a typical of English voiceless, only voiceless plosives, p and k. And it's kind of additional puff of air after the explosion. This is again going to be improvisation, and this is a bit wet, but an aspiration, but you have it also, you will see it also in the video when I send you the presentation. So now it has to be a profile, right? So if I say znak pik u kartama, opet ću porediti sa pick, like pick me up. So you say pick and you say pick, right? So it moved. So pick. No, sad sam malo preterala. But aspiration is a quite significant difference between Ptuka in English and Serbian. And not only Serbian, but a large number of languages. And there is a reason for that. But Okay, we are close to September. And I think that's it. Okay, so where we stopped. So is this part with aspiration? Is it okay? Is it true, guys? It is. Okay. Now, so when we produce plosives, we have a complete contact, right? At different parts in your cavity, sometimes between the lips, sometimes between the tip of the tongue, alveolar ridge, and so on and so forth. Now, there is one relatively huge group of sounds which you can usually lengthen, like prolong. And what is typical of their production is that actually you don't have a contact in the oral cavity. So if this is the tongue and this is the upper jaw, so the tongue comes close to the upper jaw and some sort of passage is created, a very, very narrow passage is created between them, but there's no contact, just a narrow passage. And then the air goes through this passage and creates friction. So what are these sounds which have so-called partial obstacle? Because there's no contact, just a narrowing, the air goes through it, and you have a friction as a result. Fricatives. Okay, so what are the fricatives in English? Again, if we start from the lips and teeth, and then we'll go backwards. Further. Okay. Scissor, right? Now, before scissor are true fricatives, they're very loud. Further, quite weak sounds. But between them, we have
maybe intradentals.
We have what are the interdental fricatives? So and the. So we have further. So there is a passage, maybe even a slight contact between the upper lip and lower teeth. Then we have interdental fricatives like th and the. Then we have true fricatives, which are very, very loud. S and z. Is this the end of the story? Any more fricatives? Sorry, this is my cat. And in addition to s and z?
Maybe like sh, j.
Sh and j. And there is one more, a very poor fricative. Because it's voiceless, it does not have a voice count. Okay. And I'll share again. Okay. What? God's sake. What's happening? Sorry, something is happening. Okay, here it is. Okay, so Okay, these are the positive. So fricatives are f and v. So, and if we go backwards, f and v, then we have s and z, sh and j, and finally h. Now, f and v are more or less similar in English and Serbian. What I'm primarily interested in is th and the. They do not exist in Serbian, as I said, Hungarian, in German as well, and they tend to be mixed up. Well, in Serbian and Hungarian with t and d, as far as I know. In German, they tend to be mixed up with, do you know which sounds? So these are th and the. These are the symbols.
With the.
With s and z. And you have a video. If I find it, I'll send it to you. The ship is sinking and they are calling for help. And they say, we're sinking, we're all going to die. And then there is a German person responding, and they say, well, it's good you're thinking, right? We all think. So Germans, for example, tend to replace s and th and z and the. But they're always spelled with th, and this is quite indicative. S and z are almost identical in English and Serbian, and actually in most languages, but sh and j are not. So, for example, what would be a difference between sh and j in English and Serbian? You all speak Serbian here, or Hungarian. If you say, I have to buy new rouge, and you say, moram da kupim rouge, kao Carmen, no? Ž and ž. How would you describe it simply?
Well, in Serbian, it's kind of like sharper sound.
That's right. In Serbian, both sh and j are much sharper. In English, they are quite soft. And it's the same with Africa's ch and j. It has to do with the part of the tongue. If the part of the tongue which is involved in the articulation is very large, you produce soft sounds. If it's not very large, if you use only the tip of the tongue, then you usually produce sounds which are not so soft. Actually, it's quite the opposite. And these are the symbols for sh and j. So as you can see, the symbols for letters and sounds are more or less the same when it comes to consonants, but okay, memorize these two, sh and j as well. And we have h. Okay, would you say there is a difference between h in English and Serbian? Verice, what would you say?
Ste mene prozvali? Izvinite, možda da ponovite pitanje?
Would you say that there is a difference between h in English and Serbian?
It sounds very similar, so I can't distinguish a difference.
Are you? Okay.
I am bilingual. I speak Serbian and English.
I know. This is why I ask you. Okay. In Serbian, h is actually a velar sound, and it's like.
It sounds to me like it's pronounced shorter than in English.
Possibly, we can. There are programs.
Give some examples.
There are programs and software where it can be measured, but it's also a kind of strong. So it's like it's not really right?
It's
But
harshly pronounced.
it's harshly pronounced. And how do you pronounce?
We emphasize the H in the sound H in Serbian, but in English it's more soft.
So how do you say when you meet someone or when you go goodbye and
I mean, like, hello.
hello? So in English, the air just goes between the vocal cords and it goes
Just
out. It's like a sigh, basically. So it's like when you're laughing, ha 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 ha. In Serbian, it's kind of harsh. So it's hoću, hoću. You hear that friction. In English, you don't. So that would be a key difference. Okay. And then we have another group of sounds which are called affricates. And very often they say, well, when you produce plosives, there is a contact. When you produce fricatives, there is just narrowing and the air goes through this passage and produces friction. And when you produce affricates, you have both. So very often in textbooks, you will find that affricates are actually a combination of a plosive and a fricative, and they call them complex sounds. We will see why. Just before that, do you know what are the affricates in English? Ch and j. Okay. So, and by the way, if you take a look at the symbol, you also see that the symbol is complex. T plus sh. If you pronounce it quickly, ch, you get ch. This is d and j. If you pronounce it quickly, j, you get something like j. So, why they say that they're a combination of what happens in that? How would you describe that production?
Well, when we pronounce affricates, we at some moment we have a full obstacle, but it's very short. But after it's removed, the air just flows, like kinda slows down more than plosives.
That's right. So there's no abrupt removal of the obstacle, but this removal is quite gentle, just like in the case of fricatives. So you have both complete closure, which is typical of plosives, but this closure or this obstacle is not removed suddenly. There is no explosion or anything like that, but slowly. And again, you have that passage and this friction part. And this is why they say that they are complex. Or a combination of a plosive and a fricative. Okay. Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes. Any difference between ch and j in English and Serbian? If I say check and check, kao čekiraj in Serbian, and I say check in English, what's the difference?
Well, to me, in English, they kind of sound like between ch, like something between those two sounds in English.
Okay, so just like sh and j, which are fricatives, ch and j in English are much, much softer. It's not ch. In Serbian, it's ch. In English, it's ch, right? In English, they're softer. If you try to, I don't know, if you try to use English ch in Serbian sentence, you will say, možeš li da mi čekiraš knjižicu ili džaba što me voliš or whatever, right? So in Serbian they're quite harsh. In English they're much softer. And in Serbian we have a very large inventory of Africas. There is also ch and j and s and in English you have only two, and that's the end of the story. Now these three groups of sounds, so plosives, complete closure, explosion, fricatives, just narrowing, and affricates, there is a contact, but you remove this obstacle slowly, so they're complex. These three groups of sounds are called obstruents. There is always some sort of obstruction to the air stream, and the air cannot escape freely. Maya will be talking in much more detail when it comes to lectures, not practical classes, but lectures. So they're called obstruenti na srpskom. Plosivi, fricativi i affricati. Now, there is another set of consonants, not only in English, but in Serbian as well, and so on, which are much louder. And you might have an obstacle, usually you do, but the air finds a way to escape freely, somehow, somewhere. And this is why they're rather loud, much louder. Now, do you know perhaps, so there might be obstacle in their production, but there is also free escape of air, sometimes through the nose, sometimes through the mouth. And this is why they're much louder. Do you know how they're called?
Nasals, glide, and liquids.
And all together, they are called, since they're very sonorous, they are called sonorants. Sonorants. Okay. So nasals, laterals, and so on. We'll go through them. So what is typical of sonorants, as I said, okay, you might have an obstacle, but the air escapes freely. How? The first set of sonorants are nasals. So automatically you know it has something to do with the nose, right? And nasals in English are m, n, and ng. Now this sound sometimes causes problems, but we will actually practice each of these classes separately. Now we're just introducing, well, symbols basically. Now, what happens in the production of m, n, and ng? Do you have complete closure when you say m, as in mom? No. Is there a complete closure? Somewhere.
Lid.
Yeah, it's bilabial. When you say nice, no, is there a complete closure? When I say complete closure, it means a contact. So a touch between two vocal organs. When you say nice, is there a complete closure?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, between the tip of the tongue, n, try to pronounce n, and alveolar ridge, right? When you say n, we will practice this one in great detail later on. There is a complete closure between the back part of the tongue and velum or soft palate. And I said, but there is still free escape of air. This is why they're so loud, just like in the case of vowels. So what happens you see this part here? This is soft palate. You see it? Se vidi slika?
Da.
Yes.
Okay, so when you produce m, n, and n, this soft palate is lowered. Just imagine that it goes down, down, down. And then the air going from the lungs can go freely through the nose. So there is a free escape of air through the nose, but simultaneously you can make an obstacle in the oral cavity. But still there is a free escape of air. And this free escape of air, sometimes through the nose, sometimes along the sides of the mouth, it's typical of sonorants. You don't have for now, you don't have to pay too much attention to it, but I just want you to introduce symbols, basically, and to discuss the basic differences. Now, in addition to nasals, do we have any other sonorants in English?
Liquids.
We
Like
have
water.
Okay, we have liquids, which include laterals and retroflex sound r. So, anyone who had Latin in high school?
Yes.
What does it mean, latera, in Latin?
Side.
It's a side, strana. So, l is basically a lateral sound. Is there a contact? Now I'm asking you. So is there a touch inside the mouth when you say lie?
With a hard palate.
I didn't hear.
With the upper tip of the tongue is going up.
That's right. The tip of the tongue is going up and touches, well, alveolar ridge. Basically, it's an alveolar sound. But also at the same time, the air escapes along the sides of the mouth and goes out. So there is always a place. You can make an obstacle in the production of sonorants, but there is always a place where for air to go out. It can be through the nose, it can be along the sides of the mouth, and this is why they're louder than obstruents. They're more sonorous, and they're called sonorants. Now, another more important thing, how do you produce these two words? How do you pronounce them?
Bell and belt. And that's like an allophone, dark L, right?
Okay, but can I hear the production again? Can you articulate the sounds again?
Bell and belt.
Belt. Okay. Verice, how do you produce them?
Well, it's kind of like I have an obstacle. It's different than lie, which is like goes slowly. I don't know.
Well, there is a complete contact and removal. Verice, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Can you try to produce this word and this one?
Okay, so bell and belt.
And belt. So bell and belt. So if the point being, yeah, it's an allophone you will be talking about. It's let's say a version of the. If l is at the end of the word, as in bell, or if it is followed by a consonant, as in belt, it's not really pronounced as L. It's more like O, or more like vowel sound. And again, so it's not belt, it's belt, o, something like that. Again, we had a language instructor, Terence from New York, and he said, I like to go to Kafana. Actually, his Serbian was quite good. His vocabulary was good. Kafana, žao za mladost, žao. On je imao dark L i u srpskom nije mogo da ga se riješi. U srpskom dark L ne postoji. Dakle, u svim pozicijama vas izgovara isto. A u engleskom, kad je na kraju riječi i kad je pred konsonantom, zvuči malo kao O. It's slightly realized. Is this okay? Guys?
Yes.
Okay. Wait a second. Okay, you said liquid, so these are laterals, and there is also retroflex. Now, this is, well, for many people, a key difference between British and American, because in American, whenever you have a R in spelling, you produce R sound. In British, there are two positions in which you do not produce what? No, I don't want to present to you. When you do not produce R sound, and you do have it in spelling, can you think about some example? So in American, you always produce, whenever you have a letter, slovo, or in spelling, you produce the sound R. In British, there are two positions in which you might have a letter R in spelling, but you do not produce the sound R.
Maybe in some consonant clusters.
True. Actually, it can be a very short cluster consisting of two consonants.
Maybe,
can you give me an
sorry.
Go on.
I just wanted to provide an example. Maybe that's what you're looking for. Like we have in British English, brother, and in American, brother.
Okay, so in American you produce both R sounds, brother, right? And in British it's brother. So there's no, in which position we do not pronounce R then. In which position?
Of the word.
That's the end. That's right. So at the end or in final position in the word. So if you have, for example, I don't know, car. In American, it's car. In British English, it will be. This is a symbol for long R. In British English, it will be car, because it's final position. And there is one more. How do you produce this one? In American, it's card. In British, it's, is it
Card.
Card. Another position when you do not produce R in British, it's if it is followed by a consonant. So if followed by a consonant, you do not produce it. Now, those who have good American, should, in my opinion, is that you should keep it. Nobody's going to correct you. Nobody's going to change it if it's, for example, where it says bilingual, for example. And I believe there are, she has two native languages, but I believe that there are people here who have good American. And I'm not planning to correct it once we start listening and repeating and so on. Just be careful about transcription. So when we start transcribing, like doing this or doing this, be consistent. So decide, okay, I want to transcribe the words in a British manner or in an American manner. Don't mix these two up. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately because I would like us to have the option to have somehow two courses separately for British and American, because the sounds are different, vowels especially. But unfortunately, most of the textbooks, and that's basically the trend in the entire world, are based on British English. All the audio materials and generally textbooks for teaching pronunciation are based on British English. And this is why we stick to it when we transcribe, when we practice. But when you read, I'm not planning to correct your American. It is fine. And you decide, you have a choice. Decide which one you simply want to use. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I can provide you with a list of symbols to see the differences. Once you get the sound chart for British sounds, I have a chart for American sounds where I highlighted the differences. So if you want to transcribe American, I can provide it to you. We can have office hours online. That's not a problem. But you'll have to work a little bit more on your own. That's the truth. Once we start transcribing. Okay, and the last group of sounds are semivowels. As well, when you hear semivowel, so it's not a vowel. Why it's not a vowel? It has a lot of vocalic nature, relatively free flow of air, but they cannot carry syllables. What are the semivowels in English? Or semivowels?
Yeah, Eva. Like
Yeah.
like in we.
That's right, spelled with W, right? So y as in yolk, w as in wet, as opposed to vet, like where you take your pet to and so on. Do they remind you, since they have a lot of vocalic nature, do they remind you of maybe some vowel? When you say York, York.
They always sound similar to the vowel following them. They are pronounced in a way that mouth quickly shifts to the shape of the vowel that needs to be pronounced after them.
Not necessarily. For example, okay, sounds do influence each other, and every sound contains a bit of information of the surrounding sounds. That's true. But okay, when you let's try with the what. When you say wow, does this what remind you of any vowel in English? Wow. Wow. Da vas posjeća na neki vokal. Ili kad kažete wine, wine. Zapravo identično namestite usta. Kao
Možda
taj vokal.
Možda kao slovo U, mislim zvuk U.
Da, U jako, jako liči na U. Isto tako J u gomili slučaja jako, jako liči na I. When you say, I don't know, I'm trying to find some. Can you give me some examples starting with yeah or instead, in addition to York and York and yoke, yoke kao romance. Can you think of some example? Now I'm okay. Like your, right? So your car, like a pronoun or possessive adjective or whatever, it's like your, right? So sounds a bit like a yes sound. Okay, like a e sound. Sorry, and w sounds like quite a lot like u, and sometimes they're even mixed up in transcription. So for now, what I would like you to do is to copy the sound chart, to have a copy of the sound chart and workbook. And for the next class, I would like you just to go through the symbols and examples of English consonants in the sound chart. So I want you to know, you need to know the symbols and go through examples. You have a large number of examples. Next time, we will be talking about vowels, which are a bit more complicated. We have both monophthongs, but you also have diphthongs, which are complex vowels like A, I, Oi, so on. So that will be for the next time. And then we start practicing. Now, okay, my question is now, do you have any questions? That's first of all. Guys, ima li pitanja? Bilo šta, bilo koja sugestija, nego ne baš bilo šta, ali... Nema. Anđela, kažete? Ništa, to je to. Konsonanti su, kažem, u suštini relativno lagani, vokali imaju dosta složeniji sistem. Možda će nam čak trebati 2 časa za vokale, možda ćemo diftonge raditi posebno, vidjet ćemo sljedeći čas, ali obavezno prođite kroz simbole za konsonante i kroz primjere i nabavite sound chart and workbook. Ok? Ok. Pozdravljam vas, želim vam lijep petak i vikend i onda se vidimo sljedeći četvrtak. Ok? Bye then.
Okay, then.
We'll finish.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, see you.
Yeah.